In the quiet places where the ocean meets stone, there's a world most people step over without noticing. A shallow pool left behind by the tide, a crack in coral rubble, a shadow under a rock. It looks harmless, too small to matter, too ordinary to fear. But some dangers don't announce themselves with teeth or sighs. They hide behind softness. They wear camouflage. They wait for curiosity to come close. And sometimes, the last warning you ever see is beautiful. A flash of electric blue, perfect circles, glowing like neon in the water. A sign that says, without words, back away. Because this is a story about a tiny octopus and a poison that can turn the human body into silence. Most people imagine the ocean's deadliest creatures live far offshore, far down, in water so deep it feels like space. But the blue-ringed octopus lives close to shore, often in shallow reefs, tide pools, and rocky flats where the sea rises and falls like breathing. This place is extreme in its own way. The temperature can swing fast. The sun can bake the rocks when the water retreats. Waves can slam into the same ledge again and again, grinding everything living into hiding. Here, survival depends on one skill above all: disappear. The blue-ringed octopus is small enough to fit into crevices you could cover with your palm, and most of the time it doesn't look like a warning at all. It looks like the reef. Its skin can shift color and pattern, blending into sand, stone, and broken coral, like living camouflage. Not because it wants to scare you, but because it wants to be ignored. On a reef, being noticed often means being eaten. That's why it stays quiet. That's why it hides under shells and rocks. That's why many encounters never happen. Because you never see what you almost touched. And yet the reef is crowded. Predators patrol the cracks. Fish dart through the rubble. Crabs move like little armored tanks. There are only so many hiding places. So evolution gives the blue-ringed octopus a second language. A language made of light and shock. When it feels trapped or threatened, the octopus changes, its body brightens, and the rings appear. Blue circles bloom across its skin like sparks. Not a steady glow, often a pulse, a flashing signal that's impossible to ignore. It's a warning display, a billboard written in color. I am not safe to touch. What's unsettling is how quickly it happens. One moment, it's a plain, soft shape under a rock. The next, it looks like it's wearing living neon. And here's the part most people don't expect. The rings aren't the weapon. They're the last chance. Because the bite can be small. Sometimes so small you might not even feel it. A pinch, a scratch, a moment you dismiss. And then, time starts to matter. The blue-ringed octopus carries one of the most powerful marine toxins known, tetrodotoxin. It's the kind of chemistry that doesn't need claws or fangs. It doesn't need speed. It doesn't need a chase. It just needs contact. Tetrodotoxin doesn't destroy tissue the way many venoms do. It doesn't burn like acid. It doesn't melt you from the inside. It does something colder. It interferes with the way nerves send signals to muscles. Your body runs on tiny electrical messages. Every breath, every blink, every heartbeat is coordinated by signals moving along nerves, like pulses down a wire. Tetrodotoxin can block those signals by targeting the microscopic gates that help nerve impulses travel. Imagine a city at night, lit by countless moving currents. Traffic lights, street lamps, windows glowing. Now imagine someone reaches the control room and flips a single switch. Not an explosion, not a collapse, a blackout. Muscles stop receiving instructions. Movement becomes harder. Breathing can become a struggle, not because the lungs are damaged, but because the muscles that pull air in and out can fall quiet. And that's what makes this octopus feel so unreal. It's tiny, soft, almost delicate. But its weapon can overwhelm a much larger animal, which raises a question that still lingers in marine biology. Why would a small octopus need a poison this powerful? One answer is the reef itself. In the shallow world, everything happens fast. If you're small, you can't afford long fights. You can't afford getting bitten back. You can't afford drawing attention. A quick, decisive defense is better than a dramatic one. And the blue-ringed octopus doesn't just defend itself. It hunts small crabs, tiny fish, other reef creatures hiding in the rubble. In tight spaces, a fast off switch matters. But the deeper you look, the stranger this becomes. Because there's evidence that tetrodotoxin isn't always made by the octopus itself. In many marine animals, this toxin is linked to bacteria, microscopic partners that produce the chemistry, while the larger animal carries it, concentrates it, and uses it. Which means the octopus may not be acting alone. It may be a living alliance, a soft-bodied hunter, armed by invisible microbes. That possibility opens another door into the mystery. How does the octopus acquire these toxin-producing bacteria? How does it keep them? Does the octopus control the supply, like a farmer tending a dangerous crop? Or is it more like a scavenger, collecting poison from its environment? Scientists still don't know the full supply chain. And then there's the most unsettling question of all. If the toxin is powerful enough to shut down a human body, how does the octopus survive carrying it? How does it avoid poisoning itself? Some animals evolve changes in their own sodium channels, small differences that make the toxin less effective on them. Others may store toxin in specific tissues, keeping it away from vulnerable systems. But across different species, the details vary, and in many cases, we're still filling in the map. What we've discovered only deepens the mystery, because deep biology is full of these quiet miracles, solutions that work, even when they seem impossible. And the blue-ringed octopus is full of them. It's not built like a shark. It doesn't have thick armor. It doesn't have speed like a tuna. It has intelligence. Octopuses are problem solvers. They explore with their arms. They test spaces before entering. They feel their way through the world like a living hand. And in the blue-ringed octopus, that intelligence is paired with a defense so absolute it feels almost unfair. A creature small enough to hold, with chemistry strong enough to stop you. The reef becomes a different place once you know that. Those tide pools you walk past, the rocks you turn over, the shells you pick up, they're not just scenery, they're doorways, because the ocean doesn't separate danger into deep and shallow the way we do. It hides risk wherever life can fit. In the case of the blue-ringed octopus, the danger isn't loud. It doesn't want attention. It wants distance. And that's why the warning is so bright. Those rings aren't a threat for fun. They're an emergency flare. A final message that says, I would rather you leave than force me to use what I carry. In rare cases where people are bitten, survival often depends on how quickly help arrives and whether breathing can be supported until the toxin wears off. It's a terrifying thought, because it means the most important battle isn't always against pain. Sometimes it's against time, against quietness, against a body that still feels awake, while losing the ability to respond. And yet, even here, there's something awe-inspiring, because the blue-ringed octopus is not a villain. It is a small animal solving a problem posed by a harsh environment. How do you survive on a crowded reef when you are soft, slow, and vulnerable? You become impossible to ignore, only when you must. And you carry a defense so effective that most predators learn the lesson once. That is what the rings really are, a teacher, a warning delivered in light. And when you zoom out, the story becomes even larger. If shallow reefs can produce an animal this alien, this precise, this chemically advanced, then what else is living out of sight? How many other creatures are using strategies we haven't discovered yet? We like to imagine we understand the ocean because we can see the surface, but the truth is, we only know the parts that meet our eyes. Beneath that, life is constantly experimenting, building weapons, building disguises, building partnerships with microbes, shaping bodies and behaviors into solutions that work in silence. The blue-ringed octopus is one of those solutions, a reminder that nature doesn't need size to create power. It doesn't need noise to create danger, and it doesn't need monsters to create fear. Sometimes all it takes is a small shadow under a rock, and a few bright rings that appear like a final warning in the water. Because the ocean doesn't only hide the unknown in deep darkness. Sometimes it hides it inches from your feet. And somewhere along a quiet reef, as the tide rises again, a tiny octopus slips back into a crack in the stone. The rings fade, the warning disappears, and the reef looks harmless once more, which raises the final question. How many secrets can a world hold when most of it is still unexplored?